in other news, here at Headset, we've been doing some market projection work. We release it on a quarterly basis, and it's kind of a way for us to project out, how large we think the market's going to be at a national level, where the growth's coming from, and what do category sales look like. So we recently released that report. You can find it at headset.io under our industry reports section. It's freely available. But the big highlights here are that this year, as I mentioned, we expect Canada to grow 54% to $4 billion, and we expect the U.S. to grow 27% to just under $24 billion. And you may hear that like Canada growth, it's large growth, but we have to remember, growth percentages are relative, and when you have a market that's under $4 billion growing to $4 billion, that can be a high percentage, where the U.S., a more mature market, a larger market, percentage growth is naturally going to be small, but the dollar size is going to be bigger. And, close to 30% growth is still, I would say, very, very healthy growth for any industry out there. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And then in 2022, we're projecting over a $30 billion market in the U.S., so again, healthy growth coming through. And a lot of that growth is going to be driven by the new markets coming online. Timing is still, TBD on some of these markets like New York, and if they're really going to have an impact in 2022. But certainly some are, and some markets that have legalized and that have frameworks kind of getting their stride, like Arizona, even though it has had legal adult use cannabis for some time. It's always the beginning. It's a little slower, although Arizona, it sounds like it's doing pretty well. Another kind of notable takeaway is that we project, this year in the U.S., flower as market share, as percentage of sales, is actually dipping a little bit, but it climbs back up into 2022. And a lot of that has to do with new markets. Flower seems to be a large driver of sales. And as the markets mature, more extracted products come to market, you start to see those impact flower sales. So as more people are buying things like edibles and beverages, which might not be available day one in those markets. So encourage everyone to take a look at the report. But $30 billion market, 2022, that's the key metric there. And 2022 is not that far away. And of course, this could grow. I don't think in 2022 we'll see new markets coming online that we haven't, figured out, but, with federal legalization or other markets legalizing, 2023 and beyond, certainly we're going to see even increased growth from there, which brings me to Cowen. Cowen updated their market size projections in the U.S. over the next 10 years to $100 billion, which, might actually be a little conservative when we think about federal change. In 10 years, better have safe banking at the very least. In 10 years, we will have, federal legalization. In 10 years, you're going to have a lot of states, new states, and you're going to have states like New York in a very mature position, very sizable metrics coming out of states like that. So I think 100 billion might be conservative when we talk about, was this to 2030, their 10-year?
That's right.
Yeah, so in 2030, which is still, 8.5 years out. But that's a good number. It's a good number, but I don't know. If we, have you ever heard of longbets.com, Emily? You basically make a bet, and we'll say, okay, will it be over under $100 billion? And then in 2030, you see who won the bet. And maybe we'll have to do that because I think it'll be bigger. Although I think you think that too, so maybe you wouldn't take that bet.
I think it'll be bigger, and I think you're going to have to come find me on an island somewhere because I don't know if in 2030 I'm still going to be doing this. No, I'm just kidding.
I have to catch you on your yacht somewhere and settle the bet.
Yeah, I'll be out saving the whales. Exactly.
Well, so we'll see, but I do think, a bigger number, but still 100 billion by 2030 is pretty good. And then Arizona, just mentioned that they started talking about their first year sales going to top $1 billion. That's a big story. That's a really big story because most new markets, year one is just a mess. It's just a giant mess. Like licensing is hard. Like, when I think about Ontario, Canada, year one, it was like 15 stores to serve, 45% of the Canadian population was just crazy, right? And it took them so long to open up licenses, and they're still figuring it out. Now there's, too many licenses, arguably, but it's just when you look at like the largest province in Canada, year one, how bad they messed that up. And you look at Arizona, I mean, that's a big number for year one. When you look at like a market like Colorado, what were we saying? Colorado is on pace to do, gosh, over two,
like 1.9 or
yeah,
2
probably
billion.
2 billion. If things continue. So in Colorado's super mature market, they've had legal cannabis for a long time. So is Arizona, to be fair, right? They had a pretty robust medical market that, in many ways was an adult use market. I know a lot of consumers, were able to get access in that manner. So it wasn't starting from scratch. I'm picking on Ontario, that was starting from zero. But still, to come in at $1 billion year one with like close populations. Arizona's got about 6.5 million people, and Colorado's 5.5 million people, right? So it's not like the population is super disproportionately larger in Arizona, where it's like, oh, of course it'd be $1 billion because you got 10 times the population there. It's the same population. So this will be a market to watch for sure. I know there's a lot of MSOs that are, active in that market. I think it's going to be pretty good. I mean, if we're talking $1 billion in year one, I mean, what's year two going to look like? It's going to be pretty solid.
Listen to High Rise on all major streaming platforms and watch the visual on YouTube.